Aquí de África, arriba dia
So our next zone, after our speaker, Kenyon Farrow comes from the East Coast. But to introduce him, will be our Santa Clara Community Action Program Director, Everett Lynch.
Kenyon Farrow is the co-editor of Letters from Young Activists, Today's Rebel Speak Out, and the cultural editor for Planner Magazine. Kenyon has written several articles including Is Gay Marriage Anti-Black? Be Real Cool on Hip-Hop, Asian Americans, Black Folks, and Appropriation. And Kanye West rewrites hip-hop's gay record. A longtime activist and community organizer, Kenyon's worked on campaigns against gentrification, police brutality, and homophobic violence in Black communities. He was an ally of FEAR, a queer youth of color community organizing project in New York City. He is a member of Criminal Resistance and is the communications and public education coordinator with New York State Black Gay Network. Recognizing his work in the last year on HIV/AIDS and homophobia in the Black community, TheBody.com recently named him one of the African American movers and shakers in HIV/AIDS activism. As a lecturer, Kenyon has given presentations on many of the issues related to his writing and activism, and has been a featured analyst, lecturer, and keynote speaker at many colleges and universities, including NYU, Columbia, University of Wisconsin-Madison, Tulane University, Temple University, City University of New York, and the University of Pennsylvania. Kenyon continues to write, lecture, and organize, and is currently working on his first solo book project. He's working on a Master's in Journalism with the City University of New York. We are thankful to have his presence and perspective at the University. Please join me in welcoming Kenyon Farrow.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. Let's try that one more time. Good evening, everybody. Okay, thank you. I always tell people I come from, on my mother's side, a long line of AMEs, African Methodist Episcopal ministers. So, you know, the whole call and response thing, I can't say hello and not have it all say hello back. You know, a little. My uncle would do the same thing in church. But anyway, I want to thank Campus Progress. I want to thank the larger Santa Clara University body. I want to thank James Serino specifically for helping to arrange to bring me here this evening, and definitely thank the Stanford Talisman for just like being fabulous in general. So what I'm going to talk about is, and I like to move a lot, so I'll come up here when I need to look at my notes, and otherwise I'll be, you know, kind of back and forth. I'm going to pick up on some things that, you know, were sort of raised in that particular segment of Eyes on the Prize that we watched. What I'm going to talk specifically about is, I feel like often, and people in this audience may kind of have this question, you know, I've been, as much as I sort of talk at universities and in schools and other places and whatnot and write, and people send me angry emails or sometimes nice emails or whatever about things I wrote or said. A through line lately I've been getting in terms of questioning when I'm talking specifically about like African American activism and organizing is this question around, well, like what happened, right? We're 40 years, 40 plus years, kind of past this, kind of very crucial period of the civil rights movement, or what many historians call the second Reconstruction, right? Because in many ways, this is what was supposed to happen at the Reconstruction in 1865, but was dismantled by 1876. If we're, kind of 40 years outside of that, and many of the conditions or issues that we see either still impact the Black community, or in some instances, the Black community could be said in some particular ways to be worse off than we were 50 years ago, why isn't there another sort of civil rights movement or some other mass mobilizing that looks, similar to the civil rights movement, right? So I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk specifically about, kind of as it relates to kind of our purposes for tonight in thinking about sort of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender civil rights work or activism within the Black LGBTQ community or whatnot. What some of those things, because I think there's some very specific things that happened during the civil rights movement, post the civil rights movement, and even contemporarily, both internal to the Black community and external things that happen that impact both of those questions, right? So to pick up just to fill in some information that this particular documentary was starting to sort of hint at about some of the kind of internal structures within the Black community, in particular to the civil rights movement as it was being organized and unfolded, right? So there's this like idea, that the Black community is monolithic in some ways, right? And I think a lot of our, a lot of the sort of footage, a lot of thinking about the civil rights movement, I think in some ways helps us to kind of think about that. But there are all these communities within the Black community that exist and always have, right? I think one of the things that happened throughout certainly the slave period, or the sort of legal slave period, through Jim Crow and through the civil rights movement, there was a very specific and definitive target that was a very visible target that all Black people in this country sort of had to deal with. And that was like the white supremacist state, right, ultimately, right? Whether under slavery or under Jim Crow or whatever, that was the target, right? That was the enemy. Very clearly defined. No matter what your socioeconomic status was, no matter where in the country you lived, you were under the specter of that banner. Things looked slightly different, right? In the South, there was very legal, segregation, that was written into many statutes. But we certainly know that in northern cities or in the West, the same sort of processes happened. Some of it was through banking and redlining, and kind of through those processes, segmenting off, Black people to live in specific neighborhoods and communities. Other things like that existed that weren't necessarily, de jure, as they would say, segregation, written into law segregation, but was certainly processes up north and in other places that made Black communities actually look, in some ways, not that different from the South, right? So, but there were some of those clear sort of, that was a sort of clear battle, and a clear battle even though there was some differences even in terms of that stuff in the North, obviously, than from the South, if you think about it. But it also gave sort of a lot of Black folks who